Hello, I'm Jonathan Decker, licensed therapist.
I'm Alicia Decker, co-founder of Mended.
And with us today are the Tottens, Heidi and Dave Totten, who are a superpower couple who do amazing things in the world. And we're going to get to know them a little bit better. Actually, we know them pretty well, but you guys are going to get to know how amazing they are. Because you two, to me, are such an incredible example of working together when one person's dreams or both of your dreams are not necessarily the norm. And
drastically different.
And not necessarily in sync, like as far as I want to do this, I want to do the exact same thing and we're just walking in step. Like I want to do something that is going to be could be a burden or you're going to have to carry the load, like make up the difference. And that's true for a lot of people. And it's following your dreams and it's also just surviving. I mean, a lot of people, it's like, well, I got to work 2 jobs so we can eat. So I need, like you two have a great way of finding the balance. Can we talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the talkative one. That's straight off. I'm the talkative one. So I take people to Kenya on expeditions, on humanitarian expeditions. And I started it about 6 years ago in the middle of raising kids that were in middle school. So that was pretty interesting.
And you go for how long at a time?
Anywhere from like 8 to 10 days at a time. And so I've been doing it for a while now, and it was completely accidental. I'm the accidental humanitarian.
How does one, because I mean, I've spilled milk and I've broken dishes, but like, oops, I'm in Kenya doing humanitarian work. How did this even happen?
Well, I just wrote a book, so read the book. No, I'm just kidding.
What's the book? Why not?
The book is my Maasai name is Nempernot. And it's about it's a memoir of my first 3 years in Kenya. But I went because of peer pressure. I mean, really, that's what happened is I had friends that were like, come to Kenya with us. And I said, why? There's like 50 countries I want to go to besides
peer pressure
that.
is a good thing. You heard it here first.
Right, I know. In some cases, I probably. But yeah, so I went and not expecting it to just radically change my life, our life. But it did. And so I remember it was like my second or third day on my first trip. And I texted Dave and I said, I have to come back every year. Like, maybe a few times.
I was gonna say, I know for a fact it's not once a year.
No, it's not. But and he was like, okay, it was, that's just who he is. But I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
So what were your thoughts when I know it's been a long time, but when you got that text from Heidi?
Like the things that she's doing are great. And the things that our kids are experiencing and seeing are great. So I'm fully supportive of all of this. So when she said she wanted to go more, I was like, well, that's not really that much of an issue. I can make sure that the kids get to where they need to be and make sure that the house still runs. And so that's kind of what I've brought on to myself as my role.
Yeah.
And then, also when times get tough, I try to be supportive of Heidi as well.
Right.
When she's stressed about things that are going on.
The emotional and the mental load.
Yeah.
Well, and traditionally, women are more used to making everything work so the husband can pursue his dream. I mean, that's just kind of like the roles that societally we've kind of assigned, and everyone's like, oh, well, not everyone. There are a lot of people who are like, that's not working for me. But for a lot of people, it's just kind of what's accepted.
That's culturally.
It's culturally, yeah.
Acceptable.
But for a husband to say, because you're sitting here going, yeah, no big deal. I'll keep the house running. I'll get the kids to where they need to go. We'll see you when you get back. And I'm sitting here going, I've worked with hundreds of husbands, and that is actually a really big deal, or at least it would be for a lot of husbands. I agree. For example, I don't think it's the woman's role to support the husband, and that's just how it is. But for you to step into that role, kind of saying to society and to the expectations, this is fine, and I can do this as a husband, and it's not. Is this just a personality thing, or did you have to get into that gear?
I think it's a personality thing. One of my, you're talking about goals, and Heidi has some pretty lofty goals, and
she's a driven person.
She's very driven,
mm-hmm.
and my goal is to serve her, to serve other people. That's what brings me joy. That's what makes me happy, is to be able to help. And so I think we were just perfectly matched, because she's got the things that she wants to get done, and I'm on board with having her get them done, and me helping in any way I can.
Yeah.
So when we first started, we actually dated for 12 days before we got engaged. So this was not and I was 30 and he was 27, and it was just really one of those things where it was like, okay, well, this is crazy. Why not do that, right? But he was so grounded and I was so lofty that I could tell that he would keep me anchored, and we have, of course, all these little jokes. One of the things that he said shortly after we got married, I was like, how much do you love me, right? Newlyweds. He's like, I love you just enough. Like super cheerfully. I'm like, what does that mean? Like I'm a crushed new bride or whatever. He's like, that didn't come out in my head the way, that didn't come out the way it sounded in my head. But he was like, my job in life is to make you happy, and doing all these crazy things makes you happy. So if I just support you in that, my job is done. And when he realized that, and when I realized that's what he thought, I was like, that's true, right? So I started reciprocating and saying, what are your passions and goals? Expecting him to be like, I want to go to Greece or whatever, and and he was like, what? I'm fine. So it was really kind of complicated for me because I could not reciprocate in the same way until he said to me, my passion in life was to be a husband and father, and I want to be the best husband and father possible. And I realized that by doing this and by following my dreams, I was actually fulfilling his dreams as well, because he was making me happy, right?
So he's like, get out of the house. I got this. This is what I always wanted.
And it's so funny because when people come to Kenya with me, especially a lot of women come to Kenya with me, and they'll say, yeah, I've got freezer meals for the entire time, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm like, I walk out of the house. I pack my bag and I walk out, and I'm like, I don't even think about who's going to drive our kids? What our kids are, our daughter had braces. I never took her to a single orthodontist appointment. He was like, I got this. Like, you don't need to have that on your, So it really was just having those conversations. And I think it's when you go in with expectations of roles, that makes it really challenging versus let's figure this out, like what the roles are.
Let's actually meet each other's needs instead of coming in with cultural or societal or family of origin expectations.
Yeah.
We have a bit of that in our marriage. We have a lot of reversals of traditional roles, especially because Alicia's the more ambitious one of the two of us.
And I know she's coming to Kenya.
Yeah, right. No, I know. And I'm going to be with the kids. I'm going to be like, all right, well, and I...
No freezer meals for you.
No freezer meals for me, no. But I'm just sitting here. She's asked me before, what do you want out of life? And I'm like, I got it. I got you. I got the kids. We have enough to eat. My needs are simple. And she's like, but who cares? No big deal. I want more.
Also the Never Enough song from Greatest Showman.
Yeah, Never Enough. And a couple of Greatest Showman songs, like the...
A Million Dreams.
No, A Million Dreams, and the whole bar song with him and Zac Efron, where there's the negotiation song,
right,
which she calls the love song because
yeah,
I guess you love negotiation, or
what's not to love? A good negotiation. And I know what really matters is not the stats of like what you've done. What really matters is the connection between people, and you have a process of families mentoring families, and you look at it as, the people that go on these trips, they go to mentor the Maasai, but then the Maasai also mentor the people that are there. Like, it's not a one-way street. Like, they touch each other's lives and hearts, and that's what really matters, is those change of hearts. But what you guys have done statistically is still impressive. So I'd love for you to touch on the projects and what you guys have accomplished in the last 6 years, from basically go start, 100 Humanitarians Facebook group, and, where you're at today, which is only a small a small portion of what your vision is.
Well, when I went to Kenya, the reason why it had such an appeal to me is because I saw where I majored in family science and then didn't really use it. I used the people part of family science, but not really kind of the core economic development, self-reliance, temporal welfare in families. And when I went, I saw, oh my gosh, all these organizations are working in schools and orphanages, but nobody's working with the root family. And so these kids will graduate, go back to their family of origin, and what? Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Right? So knowing what I know about generational transmission and these, kind of like the core of how families pass things on, I thought, what if we could change that at the core? And what does that look like? And so when I went back on my second trip to Scout, I just kept saying, can we work with families? It actually makes it harder. It's pretty easy, not easy, I shouldn't say easy. It's more viable to just work with a school and be like, we're just going to build this school up, than going out into the community where you're literally doing assessments on individual families and their needs at that core level. And so looking at it from a standpoint of, well, what would be kind of universal with that took a while for us to figure out. And so in the meantime, we helped sponsor Days for Girls Enterprises, 2 Days for Girls Enterprises, because we thought, well, if we can at least keep girls in school. So everything that we do is about self-reliance and economic development, and then sponsoring kids in schools.
And Days for Girls has become quite well known, but for anybody
Right.
that's watching that's not familiar with it, like what is Days for Girls and how do you guys support
Help
it?
with that. Well, in Kenya, the woman who started Days for Girls actually started it because of her experience in Kenya. And girls in Kenya who do not have support for menstrual hygiene will have to miss school for a week. And so if you imagine, once a girl starts menstruating, she misses school every single month for a week. Gets further and further behind in school, ultimately having to drop out. And if she has no way of taking care of it, then her options are leaves, shredded t-shirts, mattress stuffing, or just sitting home alone on a cardboard box, and which is just horrific. And so these reusable feminine hygiene kits are washable and they last up to 3 years, and they allow the girl to have dignity. They're very discreet. And so when we teach these workshops, we're also teaching self-defense, hand washing, abstinence, like stay away from the boys. But a lot of girls all over the world will trade sex for pads. That's their solution. And so
Or
they
money
can-
or food,
Yeah.
like it just becomes a commodity.
exactly.
Because they need that
Exactly.
education. It's their way to a better life. It's
Exactly.
yeah.
And they know that and they understand that. And so we thought, okay, that's a way to help take care of the girls. And so we've distributed over 6,500. We target 1,000 kits per year. To be able to support that. And we just fundraise here. The advantage of it is that our sewing teams in Kenya provides an income for them. They can pay for their kids' school fees. So it has a ripple effect. And I started looking at everything that we did. What is that ripple effect? It can't just impact that one person. It has to impact multiple people in different ways. Then we started what we called the business box for families. And we started with cows. And it included cows, goats, chickens, gardens, stuff like that. Well, cows are really expensive, and cows get diseases and die. And I was like, this is not a model that will work. So we flipped the whole model.
Because of that aspect, it's not self-sufficient. Not
Right.
self-sufficient. It's not sustaining. And you were
Exactly.
looking to make a sustainable impact
Right.
that actually changed people's lives
And
instead of just feeding them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we also didn't want, we're very grassroots, everything, we're not paid salaries. So everything goes towards these projects. So we flipped it to gardens. And I said, okay, let's teach them how to grow their own food because they'll learn stewardship. And I had gone to a square foot gardening class. So I was like, square foot gardens. Okay, here's the problem with that. We're cutting down trees in an area that desperately that is experiencing deforestation and termites.
Yeah.
So we were like, that's not going to work. And then one of our directors said, hey, what about these garden towers, these mesh, bags? And it was half the cost of the garden boxes and way portable, way easier. And that just exploded. And so then we partnered with the USANA Foundation, and now we've worked with, over 750 families in Kenya in our 3 communities, because we start with the gardens, teach them stewardship. After a year of that, when they show good stewardship, then they can earn chickens, and that gets them out of extreme poverty, because then they're able to sell eggs. So that really, in an 18-month time period, we really can change the core, like, economic and what's the word?
Yeah.
We can change the core economic foundation of a family, which makes a difference, because then those kids come back on their breaks and they're like, oh, my family's kind of doing all of these enterprising things, and it's really cool. And there are families that we've tracked for 5 years that we've taken from less than $1 a day to now they're entrepreneurs making $100 a month.
Yeah.
So it's tripled their income. They're paying their kids' school fees. That it's just completely changed their lives. And one of the students that we sponsored now runs our garden team, and he's building a house with the money. He's graduated from high school. So to me, it was changing that family dynamic that was so important at the core, And so when we bring groups over, the irony is that, yes, they are poor. Yes, they are struggling with food. But they understand connection and love way better than we do. And what happens, and when I realized this, I was kind of like, oh, this is the aha. I don't take people to Kenya to change Kenya. I take people to Kenya to change them, because they come back and they see life differently, and they are way more engaged in their connections with people around them, and they've learned how to love, because it's just different. Love and God and connection is everywhere in Kenya, and we don't have that here.
Yeah. Well, and I look at that, I do a lot of work in pop culture, and there's this trope in film and in stories of something called the white savior, right? Where the white person rides in and learns a few lessons from the people, but really they're here to impart their wisdom and their religion or their technology, and they help lift that community. And aren't we glad this white person came? And if we were making a movie about your story, which I think we should, by the way,
okay, let's do that.
I would see this as that being flipped on its head.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is, and you didn't go in there to be a white savior, but you just went over there to help, and you realized, I'm getting so much more out of this, right? And what I love about the program that you have is that it's two-way. It's okay, what do we have that we can bring that can help? But the reverse is also true. I think that's beautiful.
The biggest thing is that, you talk about women's empowerment, right? And everybody is, I want to empower women. And that's what I heard I just want to empower women in Kenya. I'm like, okay, bring a sharp knife. And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, listen, I've cooked with Kenyan women. It takes a really long time to cook a meal in Kenya because they don't have the right tools, period. Yeah. So I'm like, women's empowerment in Kenya are the right tools. Bring a kitchen knife, a cutting board, maybe a spatula, wooden spoons, bring kitchen stuff. And it totally changes their lives. Because they have those tools, right? So we're just bringing the tools. And
then they have more time in their life to do things.
And time is empowerment. Yeah. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, listen, if we can bring them the tools and the resources to get on their feet and the mentors to help them navigate through it, that's what they need. It's not this, big handout and pat myself on the back. In fact, our executive director, Moses, told me that there was one knife in the village when he was growing up, and all the women had to share it. So if you can imagine, how would you...
Yeah. Here, you just go down the street, get a knife. Not a big deal.
Right? The dollar store. They just don't have access to stuff like that. One of our projects that kind of developed out of craziness was Marissa, our programs manager, said, hey, she's a seamstress, and she said, I want to create a pattern for Kenya. What could I do? And I said, can you create an underwear pattern? I mean, she was thinking like some sort of shirt or something, I think, And I said, yeah, like they don't have access to underwear, and it's rape prevention.
Yeah.
And so we kind of worked on this pattern, and I said it needs to be super simple that they can sew over there, doesn't have elastic. And now we've made probably thousands of underwear, distributed it to street women and girls in rescue centers and stuff like that. And Marissa actually went over there and taught at a girls' camp and taught like 150 girls how to sew their own underwear. And they were so excited. And can you imagine? I mean, underwear, things that we don't even think about, they don't have. And so if you can teach them how to sew,
Sure.
and of course, everybody says that teach them how to fish. And I'm like, no, we teach them how to sew. If you can teach them those skills, then, and our goal is not to be there forever. And actually at this point, 2 of our communities are really self-reliant, and we just go in there to basically say, okay, how can we continue to support with
Right.
mentoring?
Right.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. Question for you. You said something along the lines of, it works really well. She goes, I take care of the kids, I keep the house running, and then when it's hard, I remind myself of what she's doing, the importance of it, and that I want to support her in her dreams. But I want to not cherry pick, but really hone in on the when it's not. Because right now we've got kind of an idyllic picture, and I'm not saying otherwise. I mean, it seems like you guys have a really good system here. But I've got to believe that sometimes when she's gone, it's an inconvenience for you, or it's frustrating, or you just miss her. That supporting her in her dreams isn't always like, hey, this is just great, and I'm happy every second about what's going on. So what do you do? More on the nose of our theme for this video, supporting your spouse in their dreams. If it's just easy, I don't know that that's really going to help anybody.
Well, when she's gone, I expect that when I wake up, I have messages from her saying that, what she's been working on, and we've gotten to the point where she just posts everything to Facebook, and I just go look on Facebook. but it used to be that she would send me messages. We would, like, the minute I woke up, I'd check in and say, good morning, and how are you? And she'd show me pictures of all the things that she was working on. And then before I go to bed, I'll also send messages saying, all right, I'm getting ready to go to bed. And, we just keep that communication going. And, she'll communicate things that she needs, if she needs anything. So if she gets messages from the kids' teachers or their leaders and other group activities or whatever, she'll let me know, and I'll go and try to take care of all those things.
I mean, all of that you should be the contact email for that, is what it sounds like.
We usually try to set that up.
Yeah.
For school, I am the contact.
Yeah.
I try to handle that stuff. But when things are hard, I try to focus on the kids. I have the kids, and they're a little piece of her, and so I can spend time with them and make sure that we're doing things, and that's just what I do.
I think for a lot of people, if their spouse is actively pursuing something, whether it means long hours at the office or being on the road a lot, it's not that's happening. It's the lack of connection. Yeah. It's I'm a musician and I'm gone for weeks at a time, and suddenly we're not calling, we're not video chatting, we're not, the touching base is infrequent. And what I see is, it's not that someone has a big dream that takes a lot of their time and energy. It's when they have a big dream that takes all of their time and energy. That the message is, this matters more than you.
Well, we implemented a non-negotiable date night. So Thursday nights are just non-negotiable. And we're super boring date people. Like, my mom always says, you guys are so boring. Like, because we do the same thing pretty much because we love Mexican food, right? And there's this one particular salad that Dave likes, right? So
I love it.
So we're just, we go.
They always look forward to seeing you on Thursday night.
On Thursday night.
And they know what your order is.
And they pretty much, like, they're, oh, you're back. Hi. So things like that we said, okay, if this is going to work, this has to happen.
What I hear you guys saying is you really keep the communication and the connection we've talked about a lot in your partnership as spouses. And then in one of our other videos, we're going to talk about, with your kids. But that's really the foundation that keeps your family working. If other people are wanting to create that connection and that communication in their family, what would you recommend?
Honestly, I think that service, Dave and I met because of service, and that became a core of our family. I think families that serve together and have those experiences, and we'll talk about that with the teens, is really important. And we created the Kenya family experience, and we've built a house in Kenya so that families can go over and actually be in the community and mentor families. It creates connection like no other, right? I mean, travel, obviously, but travel plus service, not just, of course you can go on safari. It's the #1 safari destination in the world, but we set it up so that you're having that cultural immersion with these families so that you really can create a connection in your own and be able to talk about what you're experiencing. And that just creates memories, right? And that which creates connection.
That's amazing. All right. We want to thank you both for joining us in this segment. And for those of you watching at home, check out 100humanitarians.com. If you enjoy what we're doing here at Mended Light, please like, share, subscribe, and click the bell so you get notifications for our future videos. If you have questions regarding 100 Humanitarians or regarding how to make a marriage work when one partner is pursuing actively a time-consuming dream, leave those in the comments below, as well as if you have your own suggestions, your own experience, we'd love to hear it and see it. We also want to invite you to check out our video, Should I Work With My Spouse? The link is right down there. So until next time, remember to keep shining because we need your light.